Hello, students. I am going to read this book, Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard, The Hammer of Thor. And just to let you know, I'm going to read this book, one chapter every class period. And I'm going to record it here in case you're absent or falling behind, you'll be able to listen to this and do a write-up on it. So I'm just going to read this first chapter, chapter 1. And this, by the way, is a second book in the series of Magnus Chase. Last year we read Magnus Chase, the first book, Gods of Asgard and the Sorcerer's Stone, which was really good. All right, chapter 1. Could you please stop killing my goats? Lesson learned: if you take a Valkyrie out of the coffee, you'll get stuck with a check and a dead body. I hadn't seen Samar Abbas in about 6 weeks. So when she called out of the blue and said we needed to talk about a matter of life and death, I agreed right away. Technically, I'm already dead, which means the whole life and death thing didn't apply, but still, Sam sounded anxious. She hadn't yet arrived when I got to the Thinking Cup on Newberry Street. The place was packed as usual, so I queued up for coffee. A few seconds later, Sam flew in literally right over the heads of the cafe patrons. Nobody batted an eye. Regular mortals aren't good at processing magical stuff, which is fortunate because otherwise Bostonians would spend most of their time running around in a panic from giants, trolls, ogres, and Inheriars, which is a warrior, a Valhalla warrior, with battle axes. Sam landed next to me in her school uniform, white sneakers, khaki slacks, and a long-sleeved navy shirt with a King Academy logo. A green hijab, that's a cloth over her head, covered her hair. The axe hung from her belt. I was pretty sure the axe wasn't standard dress code. As glad as I was to see her, I noted that the skin under her eyes was darker than usual. She was swaying on her feet. "Hey," I said, "you look terrible." "Nice to meet you, too, Magnus." "No, I mean not terrible like different than normal terrible. Just terrible like, are you exhausted?" "Should I get you a shovel so you can dig that hole a little deeper?" I raised my hands in surrender. "Where have you been the last month and a half?" Her shoulders tightened. "My workload this semester has been killing me. My tutoring kids after school. Then, as you might remember, there's my part-time job reaping souls of the dead and running top-secret missions for Odin. You kids today and your very busy schedules. On top of all that, there's flight school." "Wait, flight school?" We shuffled forward in the line. "Like airplanes and such?" I knew Sam's goal was to become a professional pilot, but someday I hadn't realized she was already taking lessons. "You can do that at 16? Her eyes sparkled with excitement. My grandparents could never have afforded it, but the Faddens have his friend who runs a flight school. They finally convinced Jid and Bibi. "Ah," I grinned. "So the lessons were a gift from Admire." Admire's the person that Sam is betrothed to marry. Sam blushed. "She's the only teenager I know who has a betrothed. And it's cute how flustered she gets when she talks about Amar Falad." That's the guy that she's supposed to marry. "Those lessons were the most thoughtful and most considerate." She signed wistfully. "But enough of that. I didn't bring you here to talk about my schedule. We have informant to meet." "An informant?" This could be the break I've been waiting for. If this information is good. Sam's phone buzzed. She fished it out of her pocket, checked the screen, and cursed. I have to go. You just got here, Sam. Valkyrie business. Possible code 381. Heroic death in process. You're making that up. I'm not. So what? Somebody thinks you're about to die and they text you? Going down, need Valkyrie ASAP. Emergency. Followed by a bunch of sad face emojis. I seem to recall taking your soul to Valhalla. You didn't text me. No, but I'm special. Just get a table outside, you said. Meet my informant. I'll be back as soon as I can. I don't even know what your informant looks like. You'll recognize him when you see him, Sam promised. Be brave. Also, get me a scone. She flew out of the shop like Super Muzela, leaving me to pay for our order. I got 2 large coffees and 2 scones and found a table outside. Spring had arrived early in Boston. Patches of dirty snow still clung to the curbs like a dental plaque. But the cherry trees popped with white and red buds, flowers, pastels, clothing. Display of bloomed in the window of the high-end bouquets stores. Tourists strolled by enjoying the sunshine. Sitting outside comfortably in my freshly laundered jeans, t-shirt, and denim jacket, I realized this would be the first spring in 3 years that I haven't been homeless. Last March, I had been scourging from dumpster to dumpster. I had been sleeping under a bridge in the public gardens, hanging out with my buddies, Hearth and Blitz, avoiding the cops and just trying to stay alive. Then 2 months ago, I died fighting a fire giant. I'd woke up in the Hotel Valhalla as one of the Odin's Inhirjar's warriors. Now I had to clean clothes. I took a shower every day. I slept in a comfortable bed every night. I could sit at this cafe table eating food I'd actually paid for. And I'm not worried about when the staff would force me to move along. Since my rebirth, I've gotten used to a lot of weird stuff. I traveled the 9 worlds meeting Norse gods, elves, dwarves, and a bunch of monsters with names I couldn't pronounce. I scourged a magical sword that presently hung around my neck in the form of a runestone pendant. I even had the mind-melting conversation with my cousin Annabeth about Greek gods who hung out in New York and made her life difficult. Apparently, North America was lousy with ancient gods. We had a full-blown infestation. All of that I've learned to accept. But being back in Boston was a nice spring day, hanging out with a regular mortal kid. I felt strange. I scanned the crowd of pedestrians looking for Sam's informant. You'll recognize him when you see him, she said. She promised. I wondered what kind of information this guy had and why Sam considered it life and death. My gaze fixed in the storefront at the end of the block. Over the doorway, a brass and silver sign still gleamed proudly. Blitzen's best, but the shop was shuttered. The front door window was papered over on the inside, with a message hastily scrawled in red marker. Closed for remodeling. Back soon. I've been hoping to ask Sam about that. I had no idea why my old friend Blitz had abruptly disappeared. One day, a few weeks ago, I just walked by the shop and found it closed. Since then, there's been no word from Blitzen and Hearthstone, which wasn't like them at all. Thinking about this made me so preoccupied, I almost didn't see the informant until he was right on top of me. But Sam was correct. He kind of stood out. It's not every day you see a goat in a trench coat. A porcupine hat was wedged between his curly horns. A pair of sunglasses perched on his nose. A trench coat kept getting dangled in his back hooves. Despite his clever disguise, I recognized him. I'd killed and eaten this particular goat in another world, which is the sort of bonding experience you don't forget. Otis, I said. Shh, he said. I'm incognito. Call me Otis. Incognito means he's invisible or can't be seen. Just call me Otis. I'm not sure how incognito works, but okay. Otis, aka Otis, climbed into the chair I reserved for Sam. He sat on his back haunches and put his front hoofs on the table. Where is the Valkyrie? Is she incognito too? He peered at the earliest pastry bag as if Sam might be hiding inside. Sam had to go reap a soul, I said. Sam had to go reap a soul, I said. She'll be back soon. It might be nice having a purpose in life, Otis signed. Well, thank you for the food. That's not for... Otis snapped up Sam's scone bag and began to eat it, paper and all. At the table next to us, the older couple glanced at my goat friend and smiled. Maybe their mortal senses perceived him as a cute child or a funny pet dog. So, I had a hard time watching Otis devour the pastry, spraying crumbs across the lapels of his trench coat. You had something to tell us? Otis belched. It's about my master, Thor. Otis flinched. Yes, him, Thor. If I worked for the thunder god, I too would have flinched when I heard Thor's name. Otis and his brother Marvin pulled the god's chariot. They also provided Thor with a never-ending supply of goat meat. Each night, Thor killed and ate both Otis and Marvin and had them for dinner. And each morning, Thor resurrected them. This is why you shouldn't go to college, kids. So when you grow up, you do not have to take a job as a magical goat. Joke. I finally had a lead, Otis said. On that certain object, my master is missing. You mean a certain object is missing? You mean the famous hammer of Thor? Don't say it out loud, Otis warned. But yes, his ham, which meant hammer. I flashed back to January when I first met the Thunder God. Good times round the campfire, listening to Thor's fart talk about his favorite TV shows. Fart complained about his missing hammer, which he used to kill giants and stream his favorite TV shows. And Fart. It's still missing, I asked. Otis clacked his front hoofs on the tabletop. Well, not officially, of course. If the giants knew for that certain that Thor was without his you-know-what, they would invade the mortal worlds, destroy everything, and send me into a very deep funk. But unofficially, yes. We've been searching for months with no luck. Thor's enemies are getting bolder. They sense weakness. I told my therapist it might remind me of when I was a kid in the goat pen and the bullies were seizing me up. Otis got a faraway look in his yellow slit pupil eyes. I think that's when my traumatic stress started. This was my cue to spend the next several hours talking to Otis about his feelings. I think that's when my traumatic stress started. This was my cue to spend the next several hours talking to Otis about his feelings. Being a terrible person, I just said, "How I feel your pain, dude," and move on. "Otis," I said, "the last time we saw you, we found Thor a nice iron staff to use as a backup weapon. He's not exactly defenseless." "No, but the staff is not as good as the you know what. It doesn't inspire the same fear in the giants. Also, Thor gets cranky trying to watch his shows on the staff. The screen is tiny and the resolution is terrible. I don't like it when Thor is cranky. It makes it hard for me to find my happy space." A lot about this did not make sense. Why Thor would have so much trouble locating his own hammer. How he could possibly have kept its loss a secret from the giants for so long. And the idea that Otis the goat would have a happy space. So Thor wants our help, I guessed. Not officially. Of course not. We all have to wear trench coats and glasses. That's an excellent idea, Otis said. Anyway, I told the Valkyries I would keep her updated since she is in charge of Odin's, you know what, special missions. You know. This is the first good lead I've gotten on a location of the certain object. My source is reliable. He's another goat who goes to the same psychiatrist. He overheard some talk in his barnyard. "You want us to track down a lead based on barnyard gossip you heard from your psychiatrist in waiting room?" "That would be great." Otis leaned so far forward I was afraid he might fall out of his chair. "But you're going to have to be careful." It took all my effort not to laugh. I played catch the lava ball with fire giants. I eagle skied over the rooftops of Boston. I pulled the world serpent out of the Massachusetts Bay and defeated Furnace Wolf with a ball of yarn. Now this goat is telling me to be careful. So, where is this so-called Ham? Johanheim? Niflheim? Where's it at? You're teasing. Otis' sunglasses slipped sideways on his snout. But the Ham is in a different dangerous location. It's in Providencetown. Providencetown, I repeated, on the tip of Cape Cod. I had a vague memory of this place. My mom had taken me there for a weekend one summer when I was about 8. I remembered beaches, saltwater taffy, lobster rolls, and a bunch of art galleries. The most dangerous thing we've encountered was a seagull with irritable bowel syndrome. Otis lowered his voice. There is a borough in Providencetown, a Wright's Borough. Is that like a wheelbarrow? No. A weight. Otis struggled. Well, a weight is a powerful undead creature that likes to collect magical weapons. A wait's tomb is called a barrow. Sorry, I have a hard time talking about weights. They remind me of my father. That raised another batch of questions about Otis's childhood, but I decided to leave them for his therapist. Are there a lot of liars and undead Vikings in Providencetown? I asked. Only one, as far as I know, but that's enough. If a certain object is there, it will be difficult to retrieve. Underground and guarded by powerful magic. You'll need all your friends. The dwarf, the elf. That would have been great if I had any idea where those friends were. I hope Sam knew more than I did. Why doesn't Thor go and check this borrow himself? I asked. Wait, let me guess. He doesn't want to draw attention, or he wants us to have a chance to be heroes, or it's hard work, or he had some show to catch up on. To be fair, Otis said, the new season of Jessica Jones didn't start streaming yet. It's not the goat's fault, I told myself. He does not deserve to be punched. Fine, I said. When Sam gets here, we'll all make a strategy. I'm not sure I could wait with you. Otis licked his crumbs off his lapel. I should have mentioned this earlier, but you see, somehow or something has someone or something had been stalking me. The hairs on my neck tingled. You think they followed you here? I'm not sure, Otis said. Hopefully my disguise threw them off. Oh, great, I thought. I scanned the streets but saw no obvious lurkers. Did you get a good look at this someone or something? No, Otis admitted, but Thor has all sorts of enemies who would want to stop us from getting his ham back. They would not want me sharing information with you, especially the last part. You have to warn Sam about that. Thunk. Living in Valhalla, I was used to deadly weapons flying out of nowhere. I was still surprised when an axe sprouted from Otis's furry chest. I lunged across the table to help him. As a son of Frey, god of fertility and health, I can do some pretty cool, awesome things. First aid magic given enough time. First aid magic, so Magnus can heal people. But as soon as I touched Otis, I sensed that it was too late. The axe had pierced his heart. Oh dear, Otis coughed blood. I just died now. His head lobbied backwards. His pork pie hat rolled across the pavement. The lady sitting behind us screamed as if it just now noticed that Otis was not a cute puppy dog. He was, in fact, a dead goat. I scanned the rooftops across the street, judging from the angle of the axe. It must have been thrown from somewhere up there. Yes, I caught the flicker of the movement just as the attacker ducked out of sight. A figure in black wearing some sort of metal helmet. So much for a leisurely cup of coffee. I yanked the magical pendant from my neck chain and raced after the goat assassin. So that's chapter 1 of the Hammer of Thor. So Otis, which is a goat, a talking goat, is Thor's, belongs to Thor. So this goat belongs to Thor, and Thor lost his hammer. Now, I always thought, watching movies, that Thor would just reach out his hand and the hammer would come. So I'd be anxious to find out why that doesn't happen. But Thor lost his hammer, and this goat is trying to find it for him. But Thor doesn't want to bring attention to him finding the hammer. Because if it was known that he doesn't have his hammer, then the enemies would be brave enough to attack Earth as we know it. Good stuff. Great chapter. Chapter 1. See you later.